knew we wanted all this crazy wheel travel. So he
just wanted to use my new knife.
He waited months for his knife to come on that ship.
God damn, Gina.
Yeah, all the way.
Where is AMD? It's an American company, right?
Mopar, you know, there's metal right to these 3 bumps. So you only have this little gap area, and then it's got to drain out of the actually higher than these 2 bumps. They're designed to drain to the back, to the seam. They never do. And that's those little dips you see in the quarter panel right here. Those are just your drain, where your drains come out. This is a little different than most quarter panels because of the way it was put on. So we're gonna cut all of our bulk of the quarter panel off just in here somewhere. And then we're gonna come back and clean out all these brazing, I guess, plug welds. And then the quarter will get rough trimmed off for now up here, and we'll have to drill out these spot welds through here and get the old quarter panel out from underneath it. And then get that all smoothed back out and get the new quarter panel underneath there. And then they brazed up the corner back here where they spliced on their quarter panel. We're gonna come down past that and add in, and then all through here. So we'll trim all of this bulk off, get it out of our way, and then we'll come back through and take all of this apart. And then we're just gonna keep going and take off. We'll put a halo over top to support all of the body in place. And then we'll take all of our tail pan and trunk floor out and wheel tubs and start tubbing it out. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot going on. Basically, I'm just gonna take off the quarter panel now, the bulk of it, so the halo isn't in my way. It just makes it a little easier for us. And then we'll put the halo on so nothing moves back here. And we'll start cleaning up all the edges and go from there.
So how far before, like, so could someone replace quarters without putting a halo on?
A quarter panel you could. If you're gonna do the wheel tubs and the floor and the tail panel, I would suggest trying to support the upper part of the car here. Walk over here once. All of your upper part of your car is resting on your wheel tubs. So essentially you're being held up by your frame rail, your floor, your tail pan is holding this, and then this is all holding up everything up here. So we'll support it from over top so we don't lose that position, and take measurements. So then when we are putting it back together, this will just stay right where it's at and it won't move. You have to unhook all of the wheel tub all the way around. So we'll brace all this up. And then we're just gonna set it here. I'm gonna grab a couple vice grips. This has to slide around the post. Yep. Maybe my way of pinch. What did I do with my vice grip? Actually, I wanted to be out here some.
Square up there.
Yep. Keep just taking the whole back end apart now. Go straight across from this hole here, just so we have an idea where stuff was in case it moves. And we're just gonna come down to the floor line on this one. 10 1/4. Because these will just be drilling this out and taking the tail pan off on this side.
Right.
This back edge of the quarter can stay.
All the way.
Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The
I see
quarter
it now.
piece
Yep.
can stay until where it goes bad. 54 1/4. So these little areas like I'm measuring is just kind of a vague reference to where it should be. This is where it was. It didn't look that bad. This is literally just the edge that's a little bent. The panel itself is really nice. And now we'll just commence to drilling lots of spot welds out. We'll use rotobroaches to remove those. And then we'll get the wheel tubs and floor pan all out down to the original frame rails that are actually in nice condition. And we'll start prepping them frame rails for the new floor and wheel tubs and tail pan. And then when we get all those wheel tubs and floor pan, tail pan in, we can start mounting the quarter panels. Then I'll drill all my spot welds out. Well, it's just these little pieces, so it's not all in tension and hard to pull off. Drilling out spot welds and removing any of our old wheel tub that's hooked to our structure that we're keeping. And eventually work my way up to this ugly seam and get that all cleaned up and back to looking like it should. We just gotta look for the little dip where the spot welds are. Get a little bit of a pilot hole going for the rotobroach.
Yeah.
This is all going, this lip right here.
Oh, really?
Yes, these will all get drilled.
Oh, shit.
That's the wheel tub lip, yep.
Okay, instead of
And all the way around. But like I say, if you wanted to get rid of your bulk, go for it.
I got that.
Rotobroach from the other side, but you couldn't see the spot welds as well from the inside. Then I'll just keep drilling out all these little pieces and then rotobroach them and take them all off. Sneak through here. I think there's one there. Trunk. You know there's mics on, right, Anthony? It's because our wheel tub is going to sit in further. So then this whole edge is going to be moved in further. So this bracket will probably get reshaped a little bit and still reused. It'll just sit higher up on the mount. They don't always loosen up. I should have a little bit bigger rotor broach probably on here. And then we'll clean that edge all up. This will end up probably getting adjusted because we're doing the wider wheel tub. So they come flatter across the top and then drop down to 2 inches over, or 2.5. Pack apart because you want to keep what's behind it, and then straight over. From here in, the floor pan will get trimmed off over to the frame rail. So for now, instead of me cutting all them spot welds, I'll cut that lip off of there and then just cut up through here, get this big chunk gone, and then I'll work at getting that little bit out. To fit the wheel tub, I'll literally just let them bend up out of the way a little bit for now, and that way we keep enough metal on there, and I'll shape that right in place to come back down and hit the wheel tub. And it's the same situation, drill spot welds. Try not to cut the good panels. That top edge of the quarter I'll have to take off. The front edge, the bottom edge around the rocker yet. Those are usually spot welded on the bottom as well. Let me check his side once quick
you
too.
would follow this tutorial if you're just replacing the wheel house?
If you were not tubbing the car, you could leave out most of what we're doing right now. Unless you were also changing the floor pan. You would not want to cut this edge off here if you're not tubbing the car out, because we're going to bring this wheel tub back to the frame rail. So this will have to get cut off and then a new edge welded on in order to spot weld around it like it was originally. So if you weren't tubbing the car, you would repair your inner tub, because usually they'll only have maybe 1 or 2 bad spots is the case. And then usually splice your outer tub in with a butt weld instead of having to go this far. So like I say, doing the floor pan, we're going all the way to bare rails back here with just a cross member holding them together in the back. And then even our new floor pan will have to be modified to fit the wheel tub, which it has an edge that is bent straight down, and we'll have to put a new edge on there all the way around, because they do not make a floor pan for a tubbed car. You have to modify a stock one. You want some brass shavings, Anthony? You want some brass shavings? You put them in your shoes for a grip. Your feet don't slide around in there. And now we'll clean all that up. This is all previous damage. This car was in an accident. That's why the quarter is all brazed on different. I'm assuming that, it could have been done in the 70s, even this quarter panel. We have no clue. But yeah, it wasn't rust repair originally, this quarter, it was smashed. But we'll take it to the next level and make sure that this B-pillar is all perfect before we put the quarter panel on, not leave holes in it like they did, in dents, all cheese balled out. Yeah, I'll keep prying here. Put these on.
Like one or two right there.
What?
Cannot see them.
Well, they gotta be ground out of there or we can't take it off. Right there's a spot weld. Okay. We're still hooked. My cutoff wheel's gone. We'll save these.
And there was no car.
We'll save these two braces and the spare tire mount braces that are on the inside here. And put them onto the new floor. Now we'll have to prep all of those rails, weld up any of our little drill holes, repair the ends of the rear cross member, and then spray the inside of them rails and stuff, and we'll be ready to go. We'll take that next cross member out because we're doing an RMS 4-link.
Right.
And what's going to happen is that cross member is going to get in the way of your 3-inch tailpipes. So we'll remove that while we have the floor out. We put tape on stuff before we epoxy the car after it comes back from dipping, you know. So you get tape all over like this. Sometimes it doesn't get pulled out. Look at that. See the whole rail. See, we were thinking on this car, did somebody do that side? So when we go to spot weld, there's not epoxy in our way. The Blair bits, there's going to be, the metal's going to be sticking up a little bit from the floor pan. B-pillar. We'll get rid of all this brazing. This is quarter panel yet. We'll take that off of there, and then we'll repair that little area there. We'll get rid of this piece of the quarter, patch this in, clean this all up, patch that in, clean this whole bottom edge up, and then we'll prep this for the quarter panel with weld through primer on all the edges. The edge, so it looks original as possible. That's all in nice shape. So we'll just replace the quarter panel up to here, about 3/4 of an inch from the body line and down through here and go right over it. So this will have a butt weld the whole entire way because this side hasn't been changed. Up here, the lead line is still original and perfect. It's not all mangled from being smashed and then repaired. So this side, the quarter will be done a little differently. There's no reason to change any of this factory metal at all. It's going to have better shape and location than your new stuff. I like, and I always just weld around that. I literally put a weld next to it, little bitty, tiny ones. And then that will draw your heat. Where you thicken up the metal, you're able to get it hotter then, and it doesn't just keep burning a hole. every rotary tool throws the sparks at me. If you're right-handed, it throws them away from you. If you're left-handed, it throws them right at you. It's not made for a lefty. See what I got to fix. Probably grind the backside first. Top of it yet, but we want to fix all of this underneath. So I'm just gonna make a little patch for that area. Just make a flat patch here with that corner shape to it, and then lay another one in there and weld that corner and grind it up. I'm gonna just probably just kind of hand shape one with a hammer and dolly and stuff. That top and then weld up them bottom two. Put some rust encapsulator in there. So this side needs this chicken strip gone. The gutter can stay. But that's it over here. That's all that can stay. This side, that all stays. I still got to cut way up and over on this. All right, spot welded there. Sanded my mouth. I don't know, I'm trying to get those off, I guess. That wasn't even hooked. Now we can see that rear cross member. Right. We'll have to do some repairs to it. It's good, you know what I mean? Just these ends. You know, it comes way out to here.
We did more on that satellite one.
Yeah, there's some holes here too.
They don't make that part?
I just don't think we realized it was that bad under there. I don't mind just repairing it because then we don't have to take that all apart then. Those it's keeping the frame rails located right where they always were. Okay. It's like the 50th cutoff wheel. Ooh boy, here, I got this for you, buddy. You can mount that under your bumper on your truck. It'll look cool. Everybody's doing it. Now we can get in there and get shit apart.
I'm gonna take these out and then we'll start drilling all over floor. We gotta try and save this pan.
Right.
You could clean some stuff up if you wanted. Because I'm gonna go on that side right now. So I don't know if you want to just get rid of the rust and get it ready to weld. Get rid of this chicken strip and this little chicken strip. It's just taking off where they spliced on the quarter panel. This is actually the old quarter panel, and they had brazed a new one over top of it because the quarter was smashed. Crazy ugly edge. Shoots and he doesn't score. The old quarter panel was brazed over top of the original one. I was assuming I'd have to cut on the other side or change the whole sail, but there's good quarter panel underneath there, so I just cut it back 3/4 of an inch, and we'll butt weld the new quarter panel right to this old quarter panel through here. And then this gutter, same as we thought, though. I'm still going to change the gutter section of the quarter because they have it all brazed on, and we're not going to leave that. We'll actually have that spot welded. Just to make it easy, and then we're not moving any of that stuff. The wheel tub actually ends up really close to these, even from what I remember, somewhere in here. That's left. No, some of them stay. I know where to start trimming that floor. And basically it's just gonna come over to the frame rail. So if I got a clue where to set that right away, we'll get an idea where to cut this floor. And then now that should be close enough to the slit.
Right.
And then same with the other side of the car.
You just got that from
So why did you move the line in?
Just so we don't cut too much of the floor off. It's always good to leave extra until you start fitting your part. So we're just gonna leave a little extra and then start fitting the wheel tub in here. If we need to take more of this corner off, we will. If we take too much off now, then we have to add to it. This way we don't have to add back to it. And that's, we need to do this mini tubbing the car out. I'm like, why is it not going all the way to the bottom of my rocker? That's more like it, Bubba. Yeah, just grab that. Get a bracket there. We'll have to get those right away from wherever Jared has them, or order some for our seat belts.
Right.
Because we'll put it in this corner.
How much of a gap is there?
It's only like this much right in the radius. But yeah, you know, because the frame rails are square, you know, they're getting narrower at the back. Like if you stand at the back of the car and look, you can see that they change. So your wheel tub, anywhere it don't hit, like in here we'll be hitting the frame rail. So we'll literally plug weld to the rail, and then the frame rail will be welded to the inner wheelhouse on the inside here, full weld. Fun. To fit our wheel tubs. So I'll just keep cutting that off. Pretty good day so far. There's always these back too, Anthony, to start cleaning up. These. Get the junk off of them and then start figuring out what we need to do to remake it. That's right. Black in there, the rust encapsulator. Peel all of our tape off, and then we'll spray the copper weld only where we need it.
We gotta grind this off right here.
We are covering up the surface that we want to spot weld to with tape, so we don't get any rust encapsulator on it. We're gonna spray the inside of these frame rails with the rust encapsulator, so we just know that it won't rust any further. Plus we take other steps in the body shop too. Everything gets a cavity wax inside of all these areas. Seal out, they also call it. Here like that. Woo! Look at that. And that's about it. A little overspray in the frame rails are not going to be a problem. So now we have it one piece, we can fit it up in there, fasten it in place temporarily, and then we'll put the quarter panel on over top of it and make sure we're at the right width. You know, so we're flowing right, our height is right on this outside opening and all that. And then when we get that set right, we're gonna widen the inside of the outer tub for tire clearance. They have it about 3 inches from the body panel, and we're gonna get it really close to the body panel. So we have that room to tuck tire. Yep. So we have room to tuck that tire in there.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna make it.
So yeah,
You're gonna put them in as
we'll put them in as one unit. We'll spot weld the inner and outer together, and then we're actually gonna modify the outers to have even more tire clearance. So we should be able to run a 15-inch wide tire without any issues, which is really wide. Something like that all the way through here. And what that's gonna do is give us more tire clearance. Your tire can only tuck a little ways and you're already hitting inner fender. This was a little excessive factory. They didn't probably have to have it that far, but it worked for what they needed. So yeah, we're just gonna widen this tub out so this doesn't stick into the wheel opening like that.
I'll start flat welding these two together.
Alright, I'm gonna see what we look like in here. You're gonna have to screw it. You're not gonna get your clamps to probably even hold enough.
Okay, I'll grab some salt cap.
You know what I mean? You're gonna have to, and you can't put it together the wrong direction either. You gotta make sure these are overlapped on the right sides even. So look at it, go look at another charger and make sure them are all right.
I didn't know I had to grind that right there.
Same with this one, it will be an overlap and a spot weld on it.
Okay.
Now I got really dirty off the table. Front floor pan because we tubbed it out and the tub literally is just back in further. So yeah, I'll remake that edge and the only way I'm gonna know where to go is by putting the tub in. You can do it with either, you know, you can put the whole tub together or just do the half. We're kind of doing both right now. He's putting the whole tub together. I'm fitting this half.
What's up, guy?
So now I'm going to scribe this. So you have just a tiny little scratch line.
Sure.
But I want to take a little bit extra so this is okay. Because I need to move it in just a little bit. If you look at the top and bottom of it here. Just like that. Then I may as well just take the wheel tub out. I'm gonna try to cut that radius. To this here, and then the quarter would just, or the wheel tub would just come across down that. Just like that. It's about our only way of getting it to work right. And then when I'll get this top welded in nice, and then this edge we can actually manipulate around a little bit yet and get it sitting right where we need. I'm not even gonna worry about my length until I get it welded. You know, I'll trim that afterwards. And then back here, it'll be the same type of situation. There's gonna be a flange on that new floor pan that's way out here. And we're gonna cut that off to match our wheel tub, and we'll add another edge like this coming down around that brand new floor pan. We'll have to take the edge off and move it to clear the big wheel tub, because you cannot buy a floor pan made for the tubs. Take some here. If you look at it. Wheel tub is going to get spot welded to this, plug welded, and then on the inside of the trunk, we will full weld the trunk floor to the wheel tub through here. So your frame rail will be hooked to the wheel tub, and your trunk floor will all be welded through here, all the way around. Even in this new edge, this will at least get stitch welding to help hold it together. A spot weld down here is not as strong as a stitch in that corner. That is not, oh, this one's fastened under that bracket yet. So I have to take that bracket off, and then that one. bracket as possible. You know, these old welds, I'll grind them off smooth so it looks good when we put it back on. So I just cut straight through next to this thing, and then when I flip the panel over, I grind through the welds that are right there instead of cutting the bracket to get rid of the weld. These welds off the back side of the bracket so we can save the bracket. And I might have got them and I might not. Bullet. And then we'll clean all the brackets up and locate them on the new floor and weld them in. Of them plug welds, and then this will be full welded. Now our wheel tub sits in here all nice and pretty. Nice and pretty. What do you think? So yeah, we'll just butt that wheel tub into here. We'll get plug welded all through there. We can get plug welded down to about here, and then we can sneak in the spot welder actually and put spot welds through there. And then we'll one side spot weld all the way through this so it carries that original look, the way the wheel tubs were originally installed. Isn't necessary. This is what we like to do. We put a 2x3 square tube inside of the transmission cross member here. Also the torsion bar cross member. And then I'll weld up any of the holes, and that's all welded in there. And then now we'll take a plate steel and we'll cover the back of the rail from this rail to the other side of this rail. So essentially it's stronger through here, and that'll keep us from having any issues ever. So what we'll do is we'll actually plug weld that thick plate to this and full weld it all the way around. And then along the floor here, it's the same as the subframe connector. You just have to take the time and start fitting stuff. We're a little tight in here. I'll just hammer them factory dimples on the rail a little bit there. We'll get that sliding up. And then any place we don't meet up with the floor, we'll have to go up. So then at our high points that are hitting, we'll scribe them and grind them off. And then just keep moving it up until it fits right where we want it.
Now, if you weren't putting that plate back there,
we would be ready to start scribing the top edge of this and fitting it into place. Which right now actually I'm a little tight. And like I say, instead of just keeping and pounding on it, I'll tap this in instead of trying to hammer my subframe up into place. And then we'll just keep fitting that until we have a real nice consistent gap all the way across that we can weld. We full weld these to the whole floor the whole way. You can see our screws and welds from up top. Air file.
Wait to drill them because your frame connector
Is right there.
Right there, and there's a slotted hole.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe we can move it over.
Yep. We could just
over
move
here's
it.
the brake line.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll do the.
You just want to move over 2 holes?
Yeah.
Just in. Okay, perfect.
Here.
That's harder though than 2 rounds.
Drill 2 holes and you cut them to connect.
I'll do it. On both, and then over there you just want to round.
Yeah, this is just the brake line.
Yep. So we'll move them in. We'll move them in on them rails. I just don't want you to have to deal with it because there's also steel in here. There's a 2x3 tube in this.
It'd be great to have them all done already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to do that.
2 cars I had to.
We got to do that on this one before it goes your way too. So perfect. Cool.
Scribe it, and then I'm just going to take a little extra off. So when I weld it, my weld is here, not on the corner or on the bottom. So I'll leave a little bit of extra room to weld along there. And then we'll also put a bunch of plug weld holes in it to the frame. I need a table or a something or another. And plug welds. And then when we put our subframe connector in, we'll actually be welded to this plate and the rail down here and up here. So we'll just make it a little stronger. Look at that, buddy. And they should butt against those floor braces. Thanks. Oh yeah, it comes my way a little. I thought I was next to that. It was wobbling everywhere. Yeah. It does sit way over here though.
You're right on your bead right there.
That's okay, I'm just figuring out what I need to do. It's fault, not the subframe connector, it's the rail. Can tell where I'm going to hit some more. So literally just mark them out. Sometimes it seems like I should be just taking more of it faster, but usually that just lands you in the position of cutting off too much. We don't want to be that high. There we go. Stinking no good for nothing. The 36 grit seem like they don't last as long as these. These just keep cutting. And it is on a 3M airfile too, reason why it has so much power. This is probably like a half horse or more. Fitting well everywhere. It's ready to tack in, but if you have primers or paints on the floor that you need to remove, I just put a mark down the new subframe connector on the floor where I need to remove the paint or primer or whatever is there. And then we're also going to do a light media blast on this subframe connector and spray the inside of it with copper weld through primer. So that's all got to be clean. And then in here, it all has to be clean where you need to weld. Because we will full weld these subframe connectors to the floor. I'm just going to copper weld down the center here where it gets encapsulated by that subframe. So it has some metal protection and rust protection in there. Out. Right now we're gonna just finish weld all these subframe connectors in. We tacked it in place. You could stack dots or continuous weld or do some stitch welds down it. Whatever you're comfortable with. You're essentially just hooking it to a, is this even about 18, it's probably 18 gauge steel. So that's all the heavier you're welding this to. The big matter where you want to make sure you have good full welds is at the ends where you're actually hooking the rear frame rail and the front cross member together. Okay, we're going to install this right rear torque box, and usually the case is they'll give you plenty of metal to meet up with your floor pan, and you'll end up trimming some of this off. What I do is I just start fitting it into place. I have the wrong side. I start fitting it into, and then I just scribe along wherever it hits. Usually it's usually not the whole area because every floor pan's got a little different shape. It's tighter on the frame than up here, little things like that. When you're doing the subframe connector, when you're connecting the rails together, that's a lot more fitting going on. Mostly because there isn't two floor pans that are installed exactly the same, so you're gonna have to trim a little bit. Short up here. Usually if you can get this clamped up, or if you're not too worried, tack weld that, and then you should be able to get this. I think I'm gonna just start welding it in. Which there's going to be some gaps and stuff. It's not gonna be perfect, You're putting an aftermarket part in a 50-year-old car. Gonna start welding from the top down.
Or if you don't like how it looks, you can just keep filling any pits with weld and then regrinding.
Dip in. Next, we're gonna go into the inboard 4-link connectors. So we'll be moving our posts and then starting on those.
Right through that zone.
So I'm just gonna make sure I have my fitment half decent, and it's fitting pretty well, all in all. What's important is these 2 holes are for your fender clips that go on here to hold your fender on. So you have to have the clearance for the bolt and the clip. If that fits, Anthony, or seems like it's helping and you need to take more, so we'll just scribe along here as well as we can, and then I'll just use a straight edge to finish out that very back of it where you can't really reach that well. Here, so you can scribe along the top here and then the front up here. I like to leave my line on. I'd rather have to grind that edge a little bit and get it to fit right than have a big gap right away. You don't want to overcut that. Welds in there, and I'll probably full weld this side and just grind it flat again. With the oversized wheel tubs, you have to trim the flange off of the frame rail to get that maximum clearance inwards. So you lose that flange that's sticking straight down, you normally would spot weld to. So anywhere that it's not going to be tight against the frame rail, like up in this area, we'll make a little 90 and start shrinking and stretching it to fit into this space that's here. I basically cut that wide so I had room to do this. Cutting it tight isn't going to get you anywhere other than a weld right on your corner, which you don't want to always do. So instead we'll make a 90, overcut it a little bit, and then fit it. So I'm going to keep fitting this part by shrinking and stretching, and then we'll move on to making brackets
off of all the supports on the inner tub, and we'll spot weld it all together, and then I'll go to the other side and do the same over there. They just sit flat, you know. So he's got 17 inches of wheel tub. That's inside of this lip. So that buys us all kinds of clearance from this. So I finished making the back area here that we talked about, butt welded it in, and then started spot welding the tub in place everywhere, and then started spot welding my lip here all the way around as far as we could, and then we single-sided, spot welded, and I'm going to do some plug welds. But most of it got spot welded really nice. I have a little bit of spot welding to do in here yet. And then once the wheel tub's finished, we'll start doing the other side, and then we'll fit this quarter panel in the trunk drop. Putting in the bigger wheel tubs, these braces are gonna have to be cut off and then rebuilt on the bottom edges. So I'm just gonna make a couple simple 90-degree angles out of tin, and then I'll shrink and stretch the edge to match this. So we'll do a butt weld across here, and then we'll be able to spot weld the edge down to the wheel tub. And on here, same as well, on both sides of the car. And actually on the front up inside it too. You can see inside where the brackets have been cut off to clear the wheel tubs. So then we'll add to those and make them fit on there.
And so you're not reusing the original pieces?
Nope, they won't fit at all. The wheel tub used to end like right here, so the bracket starts rolling off right away. So they'll actually be a simpler looking bracket than the factory, but they'll blend right in, it will look factory. You know what this is?
Oh yeah.
Shrinker stretcher. That should work, huh? A lot of times I cut with the snips upside down just so I can see what I'm doing better.
Make a new one that's bigger.
sit out here, and this is where we're supposed to sit. Like literally probably about like that. If you try to profile this line, look at.
Well, it's being a Charger, it's kind of a two-piece tail pan setup. We prepped all of our areas that are going to get spot welded or stitch welded. So we'll make sure it's sitting on the car even and side to side and square with the bottom half first, and then we'll take the top half, bring that into play. All of our surfaces will be prepped, and then this one will get spot welded over the top. Some people maybe do them together and then put it on the car. With our spot welder, there's no reason I need to do that. It'll be easier to square it up this way because they don't necessarily fit perfect together, so it'll just be simpler. But yeah, so we'll get it all even and straight on the car, spot welded on, and then we'll come and do our little corners. We'll actually be taking the car off of our frame table before we do the corners or any of that. So we fit our bottom tail pan and spot welded that in place. We got our top half of the tail pan located side to side, best we can tell. You can use a straight edge and measure up or whatever you need. But a real important thing now, before we fasten this in, we're gonna temporarily fit the deck lid so we can make sure that we have our trunk gap set right. We've written down all of our measurements from the old car, but this is a new deck lid, and we can adjust that a little bit if we need to. So now is a good time to fit your deck lid, make sure it all fits, temporary fasten your panels together, and then we'll come back through and spot weld all these. Our little screw holes will get plug welded and ground off. And then we'll fit the center latch at that same time. You know, now that you have the deck lid in, you can fit your latch back in place and get it located right where you need it. We're just gonna test fit the trunk drop. You wanna make sure it fits the wheel tub and lines up in here. Sometimes you can do a little bit of adjusting, you know, if you have to make a little slice or something. We check all of that with the quarter panel. You don't have to get real fussy. If you've seen these from the factory, they're never perfectly even. I'll probably put a couple minutes into this and get this to line up a little nicer through there. And then we'll just go through and spot weld it all in underneath and then along the wheel tub here. And then we'll work at putting our corner in that goes back here. And then we'll work at our quarter panel. This actually sits behind there. But yeah, you just have to make sure everything's gonna fit and flow. It's a really good idea just to test fit every part. Like you can screw these in and clamp these in and put the quarter panel on to make sure it's all gonna fit and flow. There, I think we're ready to clamp it and weld it. Yeah, watch me fumble around. Okay, there, I got it. Perfect. Good, I thought.
Yeah, I can see.
So we got the car prepped for the quarter panel. We got the quarter panel prepped and ready to go. We made some modifications for a nicer fit. Probably not totally necessary, just less body work. And the top sail, we cut off the area that we're not going to use. And I'm going to butt weld that whole area first before I do any of my spot welding. And then I always make sure that it's sitting really nice before I even get to this stage. This quarter's been on
5 times this quarter panel's been on. And then because your spot welder doesn't reach down in a hard top very well through the window opening, I will plug weld this front edge, grind those really nice, and then we'll come back and single side spot weld it. I just don't want to rely on just a single side spot weld. So it'll look all nice and factory through there. And like I say, first I'll start with the butt weld. Next we'll get it all mounted up there with some screws, and then I'll use magnets to hold my butt weld seam together and start tacking that all together. What? Is everything okay? Yeah, but what is it?
Probably just Matthias.
The Japanese equivalent to OPP? He dresses as a ring-tailed lemur? You just audio or?
The car also has a US car tool. I'm not sure what stage they call it, but it's a stiffening kit. So you get a new lower core support, hooking the frame rails together with heavy steel. And then inside of the aprons, there's a steel plate coming from the shock tower back to the firewall. And then the heavy US car tool torque boxes, all 4, and US car tool subframe connectors. One from the front to the back. And then, this is inboard 4-link. In order to clear the tires and put the big wheel tubs in, you have to go inboard and actually notch out the frame rails and put your control arms in there. So yeah, and this also has, which is kind of different, it also has a GM base 700R4 transmission. The owner wanted a 4-speed automatic, and they say it will handle the power. We'll find out. The front suspension is all RMS, Riley Motorsports, rack and pinion with coilovers. It's a bolted setup. You don't have to do any mods to put this in other than your steering. Because obviously you're going from a steering box to a rack. We finished up the metal work on our 68 Dodge Charger with AMD panels. Everything's fitting really well. We do a pretty meticulous walk around and make sure everything fits really good. It is at full squat right down the back, so it does look a little odd. All the panels fit really well. It's all AMD trunk floor, AMD widened wheel tubs. So they look stock, but they're massive. And we have, I believe, a 15-inch wide tire tucked all the way at full bump right now. AMD fender up front as well, and some patches in the floor, wire covers. All fitting nice, lining up with the factory panels, pretty decent. Next, you'll be off to the body shop and go from there.